What's up YouTube? Dane Hype here with another Dragon Ball Super video. Today's video is a deck profile of the OG Broly deck that I used in my previous video where I played against Zuhair and his U6 Kappa deck. Now this one was just something that I was tinkering with because I really liked the new ISR cards from set 7. I've been trying to figure out ways to use all of them, and it seemed like Broly was the only one that wasn't half bad. So let's just get straight into the deck. So as you guys know, OG Broly is the one where you can swing and your opponents and yourself have to pitch a card. However, if you have your Broly's ring out, you aren't affected by your own skills, like the discarding part of it. So if you can get that out early and you swing, it's just your opponent discarding cards. And then when he flips, he's a draw 2 leader, which is okay. This is kind of why the old leaders are a little bit obsolete, is because they can't draw on the front side and they don't really build they can't really build a hand size, and they're really easily that's really easy to take advantage of these days. So they can't self-awaken, like he can't self-awaken on his own. He can't draw on the front side, so sometimes people can leave him at 8 and you just have like 3 cards for the game, and it's really not fun. But when you do awaken, he's very powerful, and he really does start building advantage back towards you. Again, on his other side, you swing, draw a card like everybody else. Only the other thing is he can only swing at leaders as well, which is kind of relevant. But when you swing on a leader, your opponent has to pop a card on their field, and they have to discard a card. And he's not KOing the card. You're just like they have to choose one card from the hand and one card from the battle area and place them into their drop area. So you get around things that can't be KO'd and things like that. You don't get around barrier though, because it says they have to choose, and whenever something says choose, barrier is barrier is unaffected by choose effects. But when you have ring out and this Paragus out, you're not affected by any of that, because you would have to pop one of your own guys too. Because Broly, if you have none of those things out, Broly does affect you and your opponent. But with Ring and Paragus out, you're unaffected by his abilities. But let's get right into the rest of the deck. So this is, as you guys know, I like my cantrips. This is the 1-drop. This is your 1-drop generic draw card. This one's a Kami one, which kind of goes with the sideboard card. If you could play it. I actually don't own any, so I don't play it. But because we didn't get any WMAT promo cards here, unfortunately. So I didn't get any of the World Tournament promo cards, but that is something that you could do. But he's just your basic 1-drop cantrip. You could easily replace him with other things if you want to tinker with the deck, because it's not super important. It's just nice to have, to be able to kind of dig through your deck for your pieces. Then there's your simple negate, sparking negate, shocking death ball. Now it's easy to get the sparking stuff in this deck because you actually can't overwhelm in this deck, because if you have anything that's not a green, then you can't play this ISR. Unfortunately, so this deck has to be mono green, and Shocking Death Ball is still a really good card, just being able to pop 2 drops and stuff like that. This Gohan here is just a self-awakener, because again, like I said, he has no ways to self-awaken on his own. So as you'll see, these cards in this deck do have things to help you self-awaken when in certain matchups you really need that. And Gohan is another way. You can use other cards like the Frieza 1-drop, where you can play him and just take a life. Because if you run into people who play like Crisis Crushers or that new Kai or any of those things where you actually have to, you can't attack, it can actually hinder you from awakening. So that is another option you can play, is those other Friezas, if you don't want to go this way. But his whole crit thing and kind of denying your opponent hand kind of goes with the deck, right? You're trying to make them ditch some card, you're trying to crit them so they don't get to build any type of hand. So that's the Gohan there. Then the next one, the Paragus. I was playing it at 3 in the video you saw, but after playtesting a few times, man, you need 4 rings. Like, I know the ISR finds your rings for you, and the ISR is like the biggest part of the deck, so that's like about 8 copies of your rings just does not seem like enough. I don't get it. It's like I always find them in my life, but there are times where you can actually, if you have multiple rings in your deck, that actually is relevant, because after the first ring comes out, you get rid of it, having more rings in your deck to actually use the ISR again later actually comes up and is actually really relevant, and I'll tell you why when we get there. Then this is your 1-drop Broly that searches for the ISR. So if you on your opening hand, if you can't find this ISR, he's like the one that you want a hard mull for. But if you can't find him, this is the one that you can play on turn 1 to look for him. and hopefully, and look at top 7's pretty big, so hopefully this can just find your ISR. He's usually the target that you want to look for, but then if you already have him, obviously you can pick your secret rares or any other pieces that you're missing. Then the next one, your preemptive strike. I still like this card. Now I'm playing 2 of this and 1 of this because I wanted 3 preemptive strikes, but I've been testing this one. I was playing 2 of this and 1 of this and kind of going back and forth. They're really situational when they come in, like, because this is somewhat of a hand destruction deck. It's actually kind of nice to be like, you know what, if you want to play the card, you gotta pitch 2, and it's actually pretty good because this actually preemptive only works on 4 or less, so if they start playing 5s and other types of drops, at least this can kind of maybe potentially get it if they can't get the 2 cards, or if they don't want to discard the 2 cards type deal. So I do like these counterplay cards though. Then the Paragus super combo, arguably one of the best super combos in the game. There's the other green one for gods, the green god one, I don't remember her name, and then the Hirudegarn, kind of the same effects. You draw 2, pitch 1. This one's draw 2, warp 1. So this one's really good because you have to draw the 2 first, so you get to see maximum information and then pitch the card. Whereas like things like Hirudegarn, you have to pitch a card then draw the 2. So that's why he's probably arguably the best super combo in the game. For green, actually in general, but it's the best green one I would say. Then this is your Paragus. It's just one so that you aren't affected by the KO effect, and you can draw a card. So it's really nice. Then so I chose the Gohan chain here because the reason I actually made this deck, a big reason, is because I own the secret rare and I've never actually got to play with it. I've always been lending it out to friends to use in their Broly decks and stuff like that. So I've never actually got to use it. So that was another big reason I really wanted to play this deck, because I want to use this, and this is just another way to get your secret rare Broly out. As you saw how I did in the video is in my gameplay video is you play this on 4, draw 2, then you get to free play this on top of him, and then when you swing with your leader, as long as Paragus isn't on board, your Broly leader can sack your 7-drop Gohan, and then when that gets sacked, you get to play your secret rare Broly, and that's just like that's how the whole thing kind of works, and it's just really powerful effects. And then because you can do it on 4, and then I'll show you the other one you can do on 4 in a sec, but that's just a good way to get your Broly out. And then there's this one. This one is just another Broly play that you can kind of like evolve on top of this. He's if you could find better cards, I'm sure there's better cards out there, but this one isn't terrible. But you can evolve on top of this guy, and then they either have to pop a guy, and if they can't pop a guy, then they lose. Then they have to discard 2, right? So that if you are controlling the board with your preemptives or even this ability, you make them sack a guy first, then they have no guys. Then you do this evolve, and then if they can't sack a guy, then they have to discard 2. So it's a really cool thing. It's not like super important, but it is not a half bad thing to kind of use this with. Then you have the other part of the chain. So what makes this deck even relevant or even possible is this ISR. The ISR is insane. You always want to mull for it first, because if you get it right away, when you swing with your leader and you pitch the ISR, you get to look through your deck, grab a Broly's ring, play it, right? And then you get to take 1 to 2 life, which is probably the biggest draw to him, right? Because you want to get to that 4 life so you can awaken quicker. Well, you don't have to awaken quicker, but just so you can get to the point where you can awaken. So this does that for you, right? So it makes it 8 copies of the Broly's ring as well, and it's a self-awakener. And then so that's probably the biggest part of it. And then on turn 4, when you have 4 energy, you can play this for 4 from your hand, sack your Broly's ring, and then play a 7-drop or less from your hand, Broly. So then you can play this guy. So then when he comes out, he's crit barrier, and then when he swings, you have to burst 5. If your opponent has 3 or less cards, he gets to restand and swing again because he's crit 30k crit. But most of the time, your opponent will have 4 more cards in their hand, which is really powerful because then you get to actually look at their hand and then rip one of the cards out. So when you look at their hand, you can kind of see the potentials. Like, you could take any of their kill pieces out, any of their win cons out. You can kind of just almost map their turns, right? Hand information is so big in this game. It's why you still really like my old Dende Frieza deck. But yeah, just the information is just super powerful, and that makes them really good because then you can kind of stop whatever they're trying to do to you next turn if they survive. So that's really good. But then you can also, when you swing with this, on your awakened side, again, if Paragus isn't out, you can sack either of these guys, and then with your ability, when you're sacked, then you can get the Seeker Rare out, and then so that's just another way to get the Seeker out on 4. So the earliest you can do it is get the Seeker Rare is out on 4, and then by turn 5, it's usually if they're not dead on 4, which sometimes can survive. They should be dead on 5, because then you can just keep doing this. You can do this again on turn 5. You can do this if you get the Broly's Ring out again. See that's the reason I was saying having more Broly's Ring, right? So there's a situation where if I had a Broly's Ring in my deck, I was at like 2 life, right? And if I swing, and I didn't have the Broly's Ring out, so when I swing with my leader, you could pitch the Isar when you're at 2 life, grab the Broly's Ring, play it, and because you did with this effect, because you need to actually find the Broly's Ring to play it, because if you do, then you can choose 1 or 2 life. So then you could choose, one of your last 2 lives to get yourself to the 1 life, right? So that you can activate the Secret Rare Broly's effect. So that's just another way, because the Secret Rare Broly, you need to be at 1 life to get his secondary effect, where it's when this card attacks, if your life's at 1, your opponent chooses all their cards in hand and places in the drop area, which is like game ending, right? They lose all their cards and is a dual double, and they get no cards out of this basically, right? So, but you need to be at 1. So if you're able to swing with this, pitch this, grab a ring when you're at 3, 2 life, then you can take your 3rd life, 2nd life, and then go down to 1 life so that you can do this, right? So that's a big play that could have happened, but I happened to, in one of our games, but I happened to not have any more rings in my deck because I only ran 3, and the last one was in my life. Ugh, so you definitely need to, I definitely think you should run 4 rings. But yeah, that is the deck, and this is another card that I had in the sideboard. This is the card I switched for ring. I had this one instead of a ring, but now I have 4 rings, and this is whatever. It's just another negate, especially when you go against the like Shanjitas or things that they kill your hand, and then but if this is in your graveyard, you can still negate. You don't need it in your hand. It's really nice. But yeah, that is the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's not terrible. I wouldn't say it's super competitive, but I wouldn't say it's a bad deck by all means. I do enjoy playing it. So if you want to go back to OG Broly, he's somewhat relevant. So yeah, if you want to check it out, do it. Let me know what you think. And again, leave me in the comment section below what decks you guys want to see me play, what decks you guys want to see me play against. I do have a new series that I'm kind of thinking about where I play, one specific deck versus the meta and kind of show you guys and teach you guys my thought process of how I would try to beat those decks with, whatever deck whatever deck is the deck of choice. But yeah, thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.